Niccolo Machiavelli, the Renaissance thinker and author of The Prince, is often remembered as one of history's most cold-blooded realists. He didn't write to comfort the good-hearted, he wrote to reveal the brutal mechanics of power. His lessons were not about morality, but about survival, dominance, and influence in a world filled with ambition and deceit. And though his book was written more than 500 years ago, his strategies have never disappeared. In fact, they are still quietly used by leaders, politicians, CEOs, and powerful individuals all over the world today. In this video, we will explore 13 dangerous pieces of advice from Machiavelli, lessons that still shape the way the powerful think and act. 1. Power is safer when it is taken, not given. Machiavelli warned that waiting for opportunities or relying on the goodwill of others is not merely unwise, it is a recipe for failure. Power is not a gift to be granted by chance or by virtue of patience, it is something that must be claimed, demanded, and seized by those courageous enough to act decisively. History repeatedly demonstrates that those who rise to positions of influence rarely do so by adhering to rules, appealing to fairness, or expecting approval from others. Instead, they observe the weaknesses, hesitations, and ambitions of those around them, and they move strategically to exploit every opening before their rivals even recognize it. In Machiavelli's view, hesitation is far more dangerous than risk because the world rewards initiative, not waiting. Even today, the principle holds true. The individuals who ascend fastest in politics, business, or society are rarely the ones who patiently wait for recognition or a seat at the table. They're the ones who create their own opportunities, who demand influence, and who act with boldness before anyone else can respond. This does not mean recklessness or mindless aggression. Rather, it is the careful observation of timing, the calculated exploitation of advantage, and the courage to move when the moment is right. Those who wait too long risk being overshadowed, overlooked, or manipulated by others more willing to act. In Machiavelli's view, hesitation is far more dangerous than risk because the world rewards initiative, not waiting. In the end, power is safest not when it is granted, but when it is seized with awareness, strategy, and boldness. The world belongs to those who act first, act wisely, and act without hesitation. 2. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Few ideas from Machiavelli have sparked as much controversy as his claim that it is safer for a leader to be feared than loved. At first glance, it may seem cruel or even tyrannical, but Machiavelli was not speaking from sentiment. He was analyzing human behavior with brutal honesty. Love, he argued, is a delicate bond built on affection, gratitude, and loyalty. But these bonds are easily broken the moment personal interest outweighs devotion. A follower may love you today, but abandon you tomorrow if circumstances change, if a rival offers more, or if hardship erodes the affection that once held them close. Love is voluntary, and anything voluntary can disappear when tested. Fear, on the other hand, touches something much deeper in human nature: self-preservation. A man may betray a friend, abandon a cause, or forsake a leader he once swore loyalty to, but if he fears the consequences of disloyalty, he restrains himself. Fear compels action, where love merely inspires it. But Machiavelli did not confuse fear with brutality. He knew that a ruler who ruled through sheer cruelty would eventually be despised, and hatred is far more dangerous than either love or fear. Hatred provokes rebellion. It unites people against a common enemy. What he advised instead was a careful calibration of fear, enough to ensure respect and discipline, but never so much that it turns into rage. The wise leader mixes restraint with authority, punishment with reward, and caution with mercy. He becomes someone people hesitate to cross, not because they despise him, but because they know the price of betrayal is too steep to risk. This subtle balance between fear and love is still practiced by leaders today, even if they don't openly admit it. Modern CEOs may cultivate a warm image, but behind closed doors, they maintain structures that enforce consequences. Politicians may campaign on charm and charisma, but once in power, they rely on the machinery of law and authority to keep order. Parents, teachers, and commanders all navigate this same line. If you are only loved, you will be taken advantage of. If you are only feared, you will be hated. But if you are respected, and respect often grows from a quiet fear, you hold a power that endures. This principle is dangerous because it forces us to look at power without illusions. We all want to believe that kindness, goodness, and love alone are enough to sustain loyalty. But Machiavelli reminds us of the darker truth, that in times of hardship, people protect themselves first. And if your authority is built only on their love, you may find it crumble when you need it most. Fear, when measured carefully, provides stability where love cannot. For a leader who must choose, Machiavelli was clear. Love may be preferable, but fear is far safer. 3. Appear virtuous even if you are not. Machiavelli understood something timeless about human nature. People judge more by appearances than by reality. Most are not close enough to power to see the truth, and even if they could, they often prefer the comfort of an illusion. For this reason, Machiavelli advised leaders to cultivate the image of virtue, morality, and compassion, even if their true nature is far more ruthless. Why? Because reputation is armor. A leader who appears merciful can execute harsh decisions without immediate suspicion. A leader who appears generous can withhold resources without being accused of greed. And a leader who appears religious, ethical, or just can disguise actions motivated purely for ambition. The masses rarely see behind the curtain. They only see what they are shown. Therefore, to Machiavelli, it was not necessary to be virtuous. It was only necessary to appear virtuous. This lesson may sound manipulative, but history proves its enduring truth. Kings and emperors across centuries wrapped themselves in the robes of religion to mask their hunger for conquest. Politicians give stirring speeches about freedom, equality, and justice while quietly negotiating deals that serve only their power. Corporations pour billions into branding campaigns, sponsoring charities and social causes, projecting an image of generosity, while internally exploiting labor, cutting corners, and pursuing profit above all else. The world, Machiavelli argued, is not run by saints, but by actors, and those who master performance are those who rise. Reality is harsh, but appearances are persuasive. And what of the leader who refuses to play this game? The one who is honest about their intentions, who admits to ambition, greed, or ruthlessness. Such a leader is rarely tolerated for long. People do not want truth. They want reassurance. They want their leaders to embody virtues they themselves aspire to, even if deep down they know it is a facade. This is why Machiavelli's advice is so dangerous. It tells us to lean into human weakness, to use the illusions people cling to as a shield for power. Today, more than ever, this lesson is alive. Leaders smile, pose for cameras, and speak of unity while dividing behind the scenes. They shake hands with allies in public while plotting betrayal in private. And because their image appears virtuous, they are protected, admired, even worshipped. The truly Machiavellian leader knows that sincerity is a luxury they cannot afford. They wear masks, sometimes many of them, and each mask is tailored for the audience watching. The people see kindness, the advisors see reason, the rivals see strength. But beneath it all lies a singular truth. The masks protect the face, and the face protects the power. Machiavelli's lesson is not simply that appearances matter, it is that appearances often matter more than reality itself. 4. Never reveal your true intentions. Machiavelli believed that transparency was one of the most fatal mistakes a leader could make. To speak openly of your plans, your ambitions, or your long-term goals is to give your rivals a weapon they can use against you. Once your true intentions are exposed, others can anticipate your moves, block your progress, or undermine you before you even act. For this reason, Machiavelli advised leaders to speak carefully, to mask their strategies, and to reveal only what served their interests. The wise ruler, he suggested, says less than he knows, promises less than he intends, and always leaves others uncertain about his next move. Silence, mystery, and unpredictability are not weaknesses, they are tools of power. This principle is still alive today, though it often hides beneath polite words. Politicians rarely announce their real motives, instead they cloak them in noble causes or vague promises. A nation does not go to war for resources, it goes to war for security or freedom. A company does not lay off workers to inflate profits, it does so for efficiency or restructuring. In the same way, ambitious individuals conceal their hunger for power under the appearance of humility, service, or duty. By never showing their true hand, they preserve the advantage of surprise. Rivals cannot prepare for what they do not see coming. Machiavelli also understood that human beings crave certainty, and this craving makes them vulnerable. When a leader reveals nothing, when his words are ambiguous, others begin to fill the silence with their own assumptions. Some will interpret restraint as wisdom. Others will mistake caution for kindness. Still others will project their own hopes onto the leader, believing he stands for what they themselves desire. This creates a powerful dynamic. By revealing nothing, the leader becomes everything in the eyes of others. Each person sees what they want to see, while the leader quietly advances his true agenda. In our modern world, this strategy plays out in subtle but profound ways. Tech giants reveal just enough of their innovations to excite markets, but never enough for competitors to copy. Politicians announce broad visions, but keep their policies vague until the last moment. Even in personal relationships, people who are too open, who share their every thought and plan, often find themselves manipulated or taken advantage of. Meanwhile, those who master restraint, who know when to hold back, cultivate an aura of depth and mystery that makes others tread carefully around them. Machiavelli's warning is clear. Never put your full intentions on display. The world does not reward honesty in matters of power. It rewards strategy. If people cannot predict you, they cannot control you. And in a world where influence is everything, control over your own secrets is the first shield against defeat. 5. The ends justify the means. Perhaps no phrase is more closely tied to Machiavelli than this one. The ends justify the means. Though often misunderstood, its essence is clear. Leaders are judged not by the purity of their actions, but by the results those actions produce. A ruler who secures stability, prosperity, and strength will be praised, even if he used deception, manipulation, or cruelty to achieve it. On the other hand, a leader who insists on being moral in every circumstance may be admired by a few, but will often lose his state, his position, and sometimes even his life. For Machiavelli, the ultimate measure of a leader was effectiveness, not virtue. What matters is survival and success, not the moral approval of others. This principle is uncomfortable because it challenges the moral ideals we are taught to admire. We like to believe that leaders should act with integrity, fairness, and kindness. Yet history reveals that many of the most celebrated figures did not always act this way. Nations have been built on conquest.
Revolutions have been won through bloodshed, and companies have been saved through ruthless decisions that sacrificed individuals for the survival of the whole. In hindsight, people rarely dwell on the ugliness of the process, they focus on the glory of the outcome. Victory erases sins, while failure magnifies them. This is why Machiavelli urged leaders to act not as moral philosophers, but as realists who understand that power requires compromise with necessity. Even in our modern age, this lesson is alive, though often hidden beneath polite language. Governments justify surveillance in the name of safety. Corporations justify mass layoffs in the name of growth and innovation. Leaders justify broken promises as necessary adjustments to changing circumstances. The people may complain in the moment, but if the outcome is prosperity, strength, or victory, the methods are quietly forgotten. In fact, the public often prefers not to know the truth about how outcomes are achieved. As long as they enjoy the benefits, they will look away.
Machiavelli's insight is dangerous because it strips away illusions. It tells us that morality in politics is often a mask, a performance meant to comfort the public while decisions are made according to cold necessity. It warns us that if you cling too tightly to goodness, you risk destruction in a world where others do not play by the same rules. To him, morality was valuable only if it served power. When it did not, it was a weakness to be discarded. And so the ends, survival, order, victory, were all that truly mattered. This does not mean Machiavelli encouraged cruelty for its own sake. Rather, he urged leaders to use harsh measures strategically, not wastefully. If deception is necessary, let it be decisive. If force is required, let it be swift and final. In his view, the greatest cruelty a leader could commit was to hesitate, to allow chaos and weakness to fester because of a misguided devotion to appearing good. The wise ruler, Machiavelli insisted, recognizes that the world is not ruled by ideals, but by necessity, and that in the unforgiving arena of power, results are the only true justification. 6. Crush your rivals completely. Machiavelli warned that mercy toward your enemies can often be fatal. A rival who is merely wounded, weakened, or humiliated is not eliminated. They are waiting, quietly, for the chance to recover. And once they regain strength, their first thought will not be gratitude for your restraint, but vengeance for your earlier blow. For this reason, Machiavelli advised leaders to strike with such decisiveness that rivals are left with no possibility of return. Half measures, he argued, only postpone danger, while complete elimination removes it entirely. A leader who underestimates an enemy's ability to rebound may one day find himself destroyed by the very person he once spared. This lesson has echoed throughout history. When Julius Caesar showed mercy to his defeated enemies in Rome, many of them returned to conspire against him, ultimately leading to his assassination. When monarchs allowed rival claimants to live, those rivals often stirred rebellions years later. In contrast, leaders who acted with ruthless finality, ending dynasties, dismantling factions, silencing dissent, secured longer reigns. Cruelty, when incomplete, breeds instability, but when total, it brings security. To Machiavelli, the true cruelty was hesitation, because hesitation ensured prolonged conflict. A swift and decisive end to opposition, though brutal, could restore peace and prevent greater bloodshed over time. We see modern forms of this principle everywhere, though they may not always involve physical destruction. In politics, rivals are discredited until their reputations are beyond repair. In business, competitors are bought out, crushed by aggressive expansion, or driven into bankruptcy until no threat remains. Even in personal life, we encounter this dynamic: relationships, careers, or reputations ruined by rivals who were not properly guarded against. The lesson is the same: if you leave an enemy breathing, you leave open the possibility of your own downfall.
This advice feels dangerous because it runs against our natural instinct toward mercy. We are told that forgiveness is noble, that restraint is honorable, and that compassion elevates us above brutality. But Machiavelli looked at power through a harder lens. He saw that mercy often serves the ego of the merciful more than the stability of the state. And in the brutal competition of politics, mercy can be repaid not with loyalty, but with betrayal. To him, safety lay not in kindness, but in finality. A wise leader, then, must make a choice. Either deal with rivals so completely that they can never threaten you again, or prepare to be haunted by them forever. In Machiavelli's world, survival depended on one simple truth: an enemy left standing is an enemy not yet finished. 7. Use fear to maintain order. Machiavelli observed something most rulers are afraid to admit. People are often more easily controlled through fear than through love. Love is voluntary, fragile, and dependent on constant nourishment. It fades when promises are broken, when circumstances change, or when self-interest demands a shift. Fear, however, is rooted in self-preservation. It grips the mind in a way affection cannot, because it reminds people of the consequences of disobedience. To Machiavelli, a ruler who wishes to maintain order cannot rely only on affection, which is unreliable and fleeting. Instead, he must establish a framework of fear, visible consequences that discourage betrayal, rebellion, and disorder. But Machiavelli was careful to make a distinction. Fear must never slip into hatred. Hatred is combustible. It unites people against a common enemy and makes rebellion not only possible, but inevitable. A ruler who terrorizes without restraint plants the seeds of his own downfall. The key, Machiavelli insisted, is balance. Punishments must be firm, swift, and consistent, but never excessive to the point of breeding collective outrage. The wise leader rules like a storm on the horizon, always present, always reminding people of what could happen, yet rarely striking with unnecessary force. People should fear the consequences of disloyalty, but they should not live in a state of constant rage. This principle can be seen throughout history. Strong kings and emperors maintained stability through a combination of justice and intimidation. They rewarded loyalty, but punished treachery without hesitation. In modern politics, the same lesson applies through laws, courts, and systems of enforcement. Nations do not keep order through kindness alone. They keep order by reminding citizens that defiance carries consequences. In business, the fear of losing a job, reputation, or opportunity often motivates workers more effectively than promises of reward. Even in families and relationships, boundaries are maintained not only through love, but through the subtle fear of crossing lines that cannot be crossed without cost. What makes this principle dangerous is its honesty. We want to believe that societies are governed by virtue, that people follow rules out of respect or loyalty, and that leaders inspire obedience through love. But Machiavelli peeled back this illusion. He revealed that fear is often the true engine of order. Without it, loyalty collapses, discipline weakens, and chaos spreads. His lesson was not a call for cruelty, but for realism. If you wish to govern effectively, you cannot avoid fear. You must use it wisely, carefully, and strategically.
Machiavelli's message endures. Kindness without firmness breeds weakness, and fear, when balanced correctly, creates stability. A ruler who ignores this truth invites disorder, while a ruler who understands it ensures control. Fear is not the opposite of leadership, it is one of its foundations. 8. Appear generous, but be calculated with resources. Machiavelli understood that generosity, when unrestrained, can become a dangerous liability. People are drawn to leaders who reward loyalty, share wealth, and seem benevolent, But the wise leader knows that constant largesse can drain both resources and influence. To appear generous without jeopardizing one's own position is an art. Machiavelli advised that a leader should reward selectively, ensuring that acts of giving inspire loyalty and admiration, yet do not create dependency or expectation that could weaken authority. Generosity, he insisted, must always serve strategy, not mere goodwill. This lesson is striking because it recognizes the psychology of perception. Human beings are highly sensitive to appearances. When a leader appears magnanimous, people are more likely to forgive harsh actions, follow difficult orders, or remain loyal through adversity. At the same time, the prudent leader ensures that generosity is never overextended. If rewards are given indiscriminately, they lose value and create entitlement. A populace or a team that becomes accustomed to unlimited rewards may quickly shift from gratitude to resentment when resources inevitably become scarce. Machiavelli saw this principle in the courts of his time, where rulers who lavished wealth indiscriminately were soon overthrown or bankrupted, while those who measured their generosity carefully maintained stability and respect. In the modern world, this principle is alive in business, politics, and leadership. CEOs may lavish bonuses strategically to reinforce loyalty among key employees, yet they avoid creating a culture of entitlement. Politicians promise programs or incentives selectively, rewarding constituencies in ways that maximize support without weakening their overall position. Influencers, even in social media, cultivate an image of generosity, exclusive giveaways, carefully timed support, or mentorship, while remaining in control of their own resources. The lesson is clear. Generosity is a tool, not a virtue, when it comes to power. What makes this principle particularly dangerous is how easily it can be misunderstood or abused. A leader who appears generous may conceal motives entirely. Loyalty is bought, allegiance is earned, and gratitude is leveraged to serve authority. Machiavelli was blunt. Appearances often matter more than intentions. The wise ruler understands that generosity without strategy is vulnerability, but generosity with calculation is influence. The leader who masters this balance inspires devotion, commands respect, and strengthens power, all without exposing himself to unnecessary risk. In essence, Machiavelli teaches that generosity should never be an active impulse, it must be an instrument of control. By giving selectively, carefully, and deliberately, a leader projects magnanimity while retaining the power to govern effectively. The world admires the generous, but it obeys the wise.
9. People are driven by self-interest. Machiavelli's view of human nature was unflinchingly realistic. Most people act not out of loyalty, gratitude, or morality, but out of self-interest. A leader who fails to recognize this is destined to be disappointed, undermined, or betrayed. People will support you when it benefits them, abandon you when it no longer does, and sometimes even oppose you if it serves their personal gain. To govern effectively, a leader must understand these motivations and shape his strategies around them, rather than around ideals of honor or fairness. Loyalty in Machiavelli's world is rarely given freely. It must be cultivated, incentivized, and at times manipulated. This principle strikes at the core of why leadership is so dangerous and precarious. Those who assume others will act out of duty or principle are often blindsided by betrayal, because human behavior is fundamentally guided by self-interest. Machiavelli's genius was to take this uncomfortable truth and turn it into actionable strategy. A leader who understands self-interest can anticipate moves, align incentives, and even co-opt potential enemies by making it profitable for them to remain loyal.
Those who cling to morality as their guide may be idealistic, but they are easily outmaneuvered in a world where ambition and greed are powerful motivators. In practical terms, this lesson is everywhere in modern leadership. Politicians reward supporters, donors, or swing constituencies in ways that ensure continued allegiance. CEOs structure bonuses, promotions, and stock options to align employees' personal ambitions with the company's success. Even in personal relationships, leaders, mentors, and influencers must recognize that people are most cooperative when they see benefit in the alignment. Machiavelli's insight is as dangerous as it is useful. Ignoring the role of self-interest leaves a leader vulnerable, while understanding it provides leverage, foresight, and control. But there is a subtlety here that many overlook. Recognizing self-interest does not mean exploiting it recklessly. The Machiavellian leader channels self-interest into loyalty rather than chaos, weaving personal incentives into the broader strategy. By giving people a reason to serve your vision, you turn their natural instincts into tools for stability and power. Conversely, ignoring human self-interest allows resentment, betrayal, and unpredictability to fester. The world does not reward naivete, and Machiavelli's cautionary principle is stark. In matters of leadership, self-interest is the engine, not loyalty, not gratitude, not morality. To navigate power successfully, a leader must understand it, respect it, and most importantly, harness it. 10. Fortune favors the bold. Machiavelli understood that fortune, or luck, plays a significant role in the rise and fall of leaders, but he also believed that fortune favors those who act decisively. Opportunities rarely announce themselves politely. They appear suddenly, ambiguously, and often accompanied by risk. The timid, the hesitant, and the overly cautious are left behind, watching as those who seize the moment claim rewards, influence, and power. To Machiavelli, fortune does not simply reward passivity or virtue, it rewards courage, initiative, and the willingness to impose one's will on the world. Leaders who wait for perfect conditions are often overtaken by those willing to act boldly, even in uncertainty.
This principle is both empowering and dangerous because it places responsibility squarely on the shoulders of the leader. Fortune may open doors, but only those who are ready, confident, and daring will walk through them. History is full of examples. Generals who risked everything on a decisive battle and changed the course of nations. Entrepreneurs who invested everything on an unproven idea and built empires. Revolutionaries who struck boldly while others hesitated and altered the flow of history. Machiavelli knew that hesitation is often costlier than failure, because failure can be analyzed, learned from, and corrected, but opportunities lost through inaction are gone forever. Modern leadership continues to reflect this lesson. CEOs who innovate disrupt entire industries because they act decisively before competitors can respond. Politicians who seize political openings reshape governments and policies through bold initiatives. Even personal success often depends on timing and audacity. Those willing to take risks, speak first, or act when others falter often reap the largest rewards. Fortune may appear random, but Machiavelli reminds us that it disproportionately favors the prepared, the decisive, and the courageous. Yet the lesson is nuanced. Boldness is not recklessness. The Machiavellian leader evaluates risk carefully, assesses the environment, and acts with calculated courage. True boldness combines vision with timing, audacity with strategy. To hesitate is to invite misfortune. To act decisively is to harness it. In a world where circumstances are unpredictable and opportunities fleeting, the difference between success and obscurity often comes down to one simple truth. Fortune does not reward the timid.
It favors those who dare to take the leap, shape events, and assert their will upon the world. 11. Keep the people dependent. Machiavelli recognized that one of the most effective ways to secure power is to make others reliant upon you. People who depend on a leader for protection, opportunity, or prosperity are less likely to rebel, betray, or act independently. Dependence creates loyalty, not always out of affection, but out of necessity. The more a population, a team, or a group of followers relies on your guidance, resources, or decisions, the more control you hold over them. Machiavelli understood that security in leadership is not simply about dominance. It is about creating a network of reliance that makes opposition costly and impractical. This principle can be seen throughout history and across human institutions. Monarchs maintained the allegiance of their subjects by controlling land, resources, and trade. Political leaders ensured loyalty through patronage systems, distributing favors to those who depended on their continued authority. Even today, businesses maintain control by creating systems where employees, clients, or stakeholders are invested in the company's success to such a degree that abandoning it carries real personal cost. Dependence, when carefully cultivated, functions as both shield and lever, protecting power while extending influence.
Machiavelli's insight goes deeper than mere control. Dependence also shapes perception and behavior. People who rely on a leader often internalize their authority, interpreting it as necessary, even benevolent. Resistance becomes not only difficult, but psychologically costly, because dependence ties their survival, stability, or prosperity to compliance. This dynamic creates a self-reinforcing cycle. The more they need you, the more they obey, and the stronger your position becomes. Leaders who understand this principle manipulate the architecture of reliance, allocating resources, offering guidance, and withholding independence strategically to maintain their dominance without overt coercion. The danger of ignoring this lesson is clear. Leaders who allow followers or subordinates to become self-sufficient too quickly risk losing influence. Without dependency, loyalty becomes optional, authority is questioned, and rebellion becomes easier. Machiavelli's advice is subtle yet ruthless. To govern effectively, one must craft conditions in which the people cannot thrive without your oversight. The more intertwined their fate is with yours, the more secure your position. This is not mere manipulation for its own sake. It is a calculated understanding of human behavior. Dependence ensures obedience, stability, and longevity in leadership because it makes opposition not only risky, but practically impossible. In essence, Machiavelli teaches that power is not just about force or fear. It is also about creating structures of necessity. By making others rely on you, a leader transforms dependence into a natural form of loyalty. And in a world where ambition and self-interest drive behavior, such strategic dependence is one of the most effective tools for maintaining authority. 12. Divide and conquer. Machiavelli understood a timeless truth. A unified opposition is far more dangerous than a fractured one. Leaders who fail to prevent alliances, collaboration, or cohesion among rivals are often overpowered, outmaneuvered, or removed from power. To maintain authority, he advised rulers to divide their enemies, creating rivalries and suspicions that prevent unity. When people are focused on competing against each other, they cannot concentrate their energy against the leader. Division weakens resistance, disperses ambition, and ensures that the leader remains the central, unchallenged figure. In short, unity among potential opponents is the greatest threat to authority. Sowing discord is a protective and offensive strategy simultaneously. This principle is both subtle and dangerous. Machiavelli was not advocating open conflict between factions for its own sake. He encouraged strategic manipulation that made people doubt, compete, or distrust one another. If rivals are constantly preoccupied with suspicion, envy, or internal disputes, they are too distracted to plot against you effectively. A leader who masters this art can maintain dominance without directly confronting every threat. Historical examples abound. Kings who played rival nobles against each other, empires that exploited tribal divisions,
and politicians who encouraged factions within opposition parties all relied on this strategy. Machiavelli's genius was recognizing that controlling the environment and dynamics of power could be as effective as direct force.
Modern leaders continue to employ this principle in ways that are less visible but no less impactful. Political operatives amplify divisions among opposition groups through rhetoric, policy, or media. Corporations manage competition internally, encouraging rivalry among departments or individuals to ensure no single employee becomes strong enough to challenge leadership. Influencers and thought leaders manipulate audiences by highlighting differences and conflicts to maintain attention and loyalty. By keeping groups preoccupied with their differences, leaders ensure their own control remains unchallenged. The danger and brilliance of this strategy lies in its subtlety. It is not enough to dominate openly. The wise leader must shape perceptions, exploit weaknesses, and channel discord so that others do the work of weakening themselves. Division becomes a tool that multiplies power while minimizing risk. Those who ignore it may find themselves overwhelmed by a coalition of rivals, while those who understand it can maintain influence indefinitely. Machiavelli's lesson is stark. Unity among enemies is a threat to survival, and the clever leader ensures that such unity never forms. By fostering competition, suspicion, or disagreement, a ruler transforms potential rebellion into self-policing, guaranteeing dominance without the constant need for direct confrontation. 13. Reputation is more powerful than reality. Machiavelli understood a critical truth about leadership. Perception often outweighs truth. People rarely judge based on reality. They judge based on what they see, hear, and believe. A leader's reputation, carefully crafted and maintained, can protect them from attack, inspire loyalty, and intimidate rivals in ways that brute power alone cannot. Even if the reality behind the scenes is flawed, inefficient, or ruthless, a strong reputation shapes how others respond. To Machiavelli, the leader who controls perception has effectively controlled reality, because people act not on facts, but on what they think is true. This principle is evident throughout history. Successful rulers have often survived disasters, scandals, or crises, not because their actions were flawless, but because their reputations shielded them. A king known for wisdom or justice could navigate failures without losing loyalty. A general feared for decisiveness could command obedience even in error. Reputation amplifies authority, persuades followers, and deters enemies. Machiavelli recognized that truth is fragile and human perception is easily influenced. Leaders who ignore this risk being undermined not by superior power, but by public opinion, rumor, or perception of weakness. In modern contexts, the lesson remains equally relevant. Politicians spend millions on image campaigns, CEOs curate public personas, and influencers carefully craft their personal brands. Even when decisions are controversial or morally ambiguous, a strong reputation mitigates backlash and consolidates power. Companies are judged by brand perception more than internal practices, and leaders with strong public images are often granted leeway that less established figures would never receive. Machiavelli's insight is clear. It is not enough to act effectively behind the scenes. One must appear effective, honorable, or virtuous to secure lasting influence.
The danger of this lesson lies in its subtlety. Reputation can be manipulated, exaggerated, or entirely constructed, which creates an environment where appearances may diverge drastically from reality. Yet Machiavelli saw this as an inherent part of leadership. The people rarely need to know the full truth. They need confidence, assurance, and a perception of stability. The leader who masters reputation can govern with less resistance, control larger networks, and survive crises that might destroy those who rely only on reality. By shaping how others see them, leaders create a protective shield that amplifies their power, deters rivals, and maintains influence even in the face of challenges. In conclusion, Machiavelli's final lesson is a stark reminder. Perception is a weapon. Reality may be messy, inconsistent, or brutal, but a carefully managed reputation turns uncertainty into obedience, fear into respect, and admiration into loyalty. For those seeking power, understanding this principle is not optional. It is essential. A leader who underestimates the power of reputation risks losing authority even when their actions are flawless. Those who master it, however, shape not just what happens, but how the world perceives what happens, ensuring influence that endures far beyond any single action. Machiavelli's advice is dangerous because it strips away illusions. It reminds us that power is rarely kind, and leadership often demands ruthlessness disguised as virtue. And while we may wish the world operated differently, history and the present both reveal the same truth. The strategies of the prince still guide those at the top. Whether you agree with them or not, ignoring them leaves you blind to how the game of power is truly played. So the question is, will you remain naive, expecting fairness and honesty, or will you open your eyes to the Machiavellian reality that still shapes our world? The choice is yours.